So, hello everyone, guys, and this is Kartik Sapra, and we have Shivay Lamba with us. So, this is a session about org awareness, and we will be talking about some organizations which actually take part in open source and Google Summer of Code, that is the open source program as well. So, Shivay, firstly, kindly introduce yourself, please.
Thank you so much, Karthik, and thank you for inviting me over for this podcast. I'm Shivay. I graduated last year from my undergrad degree in computer science, and I've been a Google Summer of Code mentor for the past 2 years, and I've been associated with a few organizations, particularly in the machine learning and DevOps space, including Jenkins, TensorFlow, and MediaPipe. So a lot of my work that I do is centered around machine learning and integrating it with web development. I'm also active TensorFlow.js contributor and a community lead from India, including being a part of the SIG and the working groups as well. So that's pretty much about myself. Over to you, Karthik.
So, that's a pretty good introduction, a very good profile. So, Shivay, what are the organizations which we will be discussing around? What is the first one, basically?
Okay, sure. So the first one that we'll be discussing about is Jenkins, and that sort of also falls under the Continuous Delivery Foundation. CDF is what we also call it. And it has a bunch of other projects such as Jenkins X and a few other open source projects as well. But the primary focus will be centered around Jenkins.
Okay. So, Shivay, can you please share your screen so that we can start the discussion?
Now, for those people who might not be aware about Jenkins, it is an open source automation platform that helps do end-to-end CI/CD pipelines. You can do not only continuous integration with it, but also build entire end-to-end pipelines, and it has got support for various different types of plugins and support for being able to connect with other different kind of tools that help you in basically things such as your software testing, deployment, bringing your code to a staging environment. All of that can be handled with the help of thousands of plugins that are supported by Jenkins. So in case you are interested in this entire space of DevOps, of automation of code, testing, all of that, Jenkins is a really great organization to look at. It is by far, I would say, the second most popular open source project after Kubernetes. So it has got huge support of hundreds and thousands of developers around the world who use Jenkins. A lot of companies use Jenkins in their production environments. Topmost companies also use it. So the support base and the community centered around Jenkins is really prominent. Jenkins has also been part of the Google Summer of Code program for quite a time now. I'm not exactly sure about the total number of years, but it has been there for at least 3-4 years consecutively for the past from 2017 onwards. So really popular project in open source programs such as Google Summer of Code, Google Season of Docs, Linux Foundation mentorship. So again, and there are a lot of different events as well where you can actually take part, and it's really friendly for open source contributors who are just starting out as well. So a lot of good things about the Jenkins project, and of course we'll be discussing about what are some of the things that you should be aware while you want to start your contributing journey with Jenkins. How is the process like when Google Summer of Code comes into picture and Jenkins is one of the projects? Like, what can you do actually? What are some of the steps and some of the suggestions that you can take so that you can increase your chances of getting selected for Jenkins as if you want to take part in Google Summer of Code or any other such kind of open source program. So we'll be discussing about all of that. So just to again give a very formal introduction, as I've mentioned, that it is one of the most popular open source projects. This is the landing page that we have for Jenkins. There's active community work going on in all aspects, whether it's code base. So we can actually go to github.com/Jenkins as well. I think it's called Jenkins CI. Let's see. Yeah. So this is the official repository on the official organization on GitHub. As you can see, there are various plugins that enable you to utilize Jenkins alongside some other tools, some particular languages in order to do something related to, let's say, CI/CD workflows, So again, the idea behind the Jenkins is that you can use Jenkins as like an automation server and really connect any other different kinds of pipelines with it. So how usually sort of works is that there are various Jenkins build steps that take. So whether you are trying to build like a machine learning project written in the Python notebook, or you want to basically test your code and then deploy it to like let's say an AWS server. So it basically comes in with support for all of that with its pipelines that you can create. You have to basically install Jenkins locally, and then you basically create those build steps as part of whatever end-to-end life cycle of your project that you're having. So a lot of these different projects you'll find on GitHub. Now, coming back to the official website, the first thing that I want to focus more towards is the community side and what are the various things that are happening within the community. So as you can see, like there are mainly these 10 different verticals there. So the first one is how to basically connect and join various communication channels for plugins for the Jenkins core itself. So a lot of the communication that goes on is currently on mailing lists that there are for Jenkins. Then there's Gitter channel, right? So these are all the different platforms that you'll find. We have dedicated mailing lists, Gitter channel, and a lot of the discussion around Google Summer of Code itself mainly goes around in the mailing list and also in Gitter, where there are specific channels dedicated for Google Summer of Code and other such kind of organizations. So in case you want to get started, you want to introduce yourself formally to all these different to the entire Jenkins organization, you can choose these channels and you can get started by communicating with over these channels in case you want any kind of support, if you want any, like if you have any questions with regards to getting started. Right now, apart from like just connecting with the community, there are various resources that are dedicatedly created for new coming, or like absolute beginners. So there are a lot of different meetups that take place for beginners, right? So we can talk about those meetups as well, where there might be discussions centered around like some kind of a plugin, and also there are like dedicated meetups for sub projects within Jenkins. And as I've already mentioned, that Jenkins itself is part of the Continuous Delivery Foundation. Like we have the CNCF, basically it comes under, or it was adopted by the CDF Foundation. So a lot of webinars, meetups are held, and a lot of these meetups are also centered around for beginners as well. So as a beginner, how can you start contributing, right? So make sure to go and look at some of those meetups, be able to attend those meetups. Then of course you can contribute to code, because of course, I mean, Jenkins is not just about the code contributions. You can also do a lot of non-code contributions as well. So primarily speaking, as you can see that there are essentially 4 different verticals. So the first one that I've already shown you is the Jenkins CI, where you find a lot of plugins and third-party integrations that you can make with Jenkins. The other one that we have is basically the Jenkins infra, that essentially includes on the infrastructure level how Jenkins works behind the scenes, how the Jenkins servers that we create, how all of them sort of work. So if you're interested more towards how Jenkins works on the back end, this like also you can contribute to this as well. And of course there are a few other different projects that you can contribute to, right? Of course, then as we just mentioned, that there are more than 1500 plugins that help to implement Jenkins functionality in various other projects, and you can use these to again do various kind of things such as Git automation, testing automation, everything that you can think of. There is a dedicated website just for Jenkins plugins, which we can just Google that and we can go to the Jenkins plugins website. So you can go to plugins.jenkins.io, which has a lot of different plugins related to various different things. For example, related to machine learning, Android, web. So you'll find a lot of such kind of plugins that you can use. And of course, what you can also see are dedicated beginners guide for for contributing. So we have also recorded a few sessions that are meant for beginners. So if you also are interested to see those, of course, you can definitely check out the jenkins.io/participation/code, because we have a few beginner friendly guides, including some wikis, and of course, like with any other open source organizations, you'll find dedicated open, good first issues for Jenkins as well, on any other such kind of open source project like we have. So all of these different issues that have been listed are good for beginners. And of course, now coming to understand what are some of the requirements or prerequisites that one should keep in mind. So basically, Jenkins itself has primarily, or its code base is primarily built on Java. So in case you are well versed with Java, then it will actually be quite beneficial, because officially, if we look closely at the Jenkins itself, so a lot of the core logics, and of course the core infrastructure has been built on top of Java. But outside of Java, there are a lot of other different languages as well. Of course, there are plugins which might be built on various languages, and you can actually go and
Shivay, one thing which many students ask is like, we know Java, so basically Java has a core part, right? And that core part has many subparts as well. Then Java has multiple frameworks on which the backend works. So basically, what sort of Java, like how much Java should a person know so that he or she can contribute quickly, like for the good first or the beginner issues? So is the core Java part sufficient? Like if a person knows about collection framework, person knows about object oriented programming and stuff, and he or she can write code in Java but do not know any framework which is associated with it. So a person, is it comfortable for that person?
Yes, absolutely. So you don't need to be like a superstar in things such as Java Spring, or such kind of frameworks. Even if, as you mentioned, that you are well versed with core Java logics, you know how to build classes, abstraction, all of that. All of that core object oriented programming methods. All of those will definitely help you to be able to contribute as a beginner. So in most of the cases, having decent knowledge of all these different topics within core Java, and also if you are like having some Java advanced knowledge as well, that's also fine, but you should be good enough to make way with core Java concepts.
Like Java advanced knowledge about build tools like Maven, Gradle and stuff, or more than that?
Yeah, so if you do know about Maven, because of course the thing is that when you are testing it out locally, you will be using such kind of build tools, right?
Yeah.
So, but more or less, those are not going to be that big of an hindrance, because the community itself will help you, and of course, when you start contributing to any open source project, you start learning some of the
Maven lifecycle is topics easily learnable, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but outside of Java, right, a lot of different things, such as the official Jenkins website, which itself is open sourced, it's based out of JavaScript, so you can still contribute to JavaScript. And Groovy, as one of the languages that is mentioned, it's also quite actively used in a lot of different projects within Jenkins. So if you're also well versed with Groovy, you can also contribute as well. But of course, because of the fact that a lot of plugins support are there, even if you come from various different other programming languages, you can support and become maintainers for a lot of these plugins. So that's one of the advantages of Jenkins, that it's not just limited to core Java or such kind of projects. Because of its a huge ecosystem of plugins, you can you could have a Python background and contribute to some of the Python based plugins. You could have a JavaScript background, or other kind of languages background, and you can still contribute to such kind of projects as well.
Yeah, 1500 plugins you said, right? So Jenkins is a metaphor, right? That's nice.
Yeah. So of course, outside of the code, you can help basically translate some of the documentation. You can basically help by writing test cases, by contributing to regression, unit, integration testing, automated testing, all of that. You can help with documentation. In case you are a designer, you can help with design, you can help with code reviews, or I mean, even if you don't have support or time for doing like code contributions, you can also donate to the foundation. So I mean, in general, the Jenkins Foundation is super friendly for beginners, and because of the fact that it has such a large ecosystem for it. So now talking briefly about Google Summer of Code in Jenkins, like very specifically about just the Google Summer of Code program. So as you know, we have mentioned that each year Jenkins takes part in, and usually they get around 6 to 7 projects. So for example, in 2021, there were a total of 5 different projects that were there. And of course, if you want to take part in Google Summer of Code, the earlier that you start, it's the more it's better, because of the fact that yes, Jenkins really relies on early contributors, right? So in case you have started contributing, and the two main values that Jenkins as an organization really relies on is that you are an active contributor, and not like, when I say contributor, not only in terms of contributing to the code base or to the documentation, but also in general, you're an active contributor, that you are actively taking part in a lot of these discussions, meetups, and you're helping out others as well. So that aspect is also valued a lot. And they really want, people who have been associated for a long time. So there have been instances where we have, selected candidates who were not probably the best candidates suitable for that particular project under Google Summer of Code, but just because of the fact that yes, they were active contributors and they had stayed for the organization for quite some long time. So I would say that the usual projects that you'll find in Jenkins, they are not hard by any means. They're not easy as well, but they are definitely something that the more time you spend with them, you will be able to get a hang of the code base and you will be able to contribute quite efficiently. And with the support that we have with all the amazing mentors, org admins, project maintainers that are out there. So the two tips I would like to give for anyone who wants to get started with Google Summer of Code and they are interested to take part in Google Summer of Code with Jenkins is to join the various, channels such as Gitter, join the, Google Summer of Code mailing list and introduce yourself. Understand the entire ecosystem. You'll find a lot of resources for that, and just identify like which particular type of projects you are interested in and start contributing early. So I mean, even right now we are sort of towards the end of December. This will be also a great time if you want to get a good head start and just get to know about the community, about the entire Jenkins ecosystem, because it's quite vast. So that way you'll be able to understand about the projects. You'll be able to go ahead and look at some of the projects and start contributing to them.
So one thing which I want to know here, Shivay, is that many of the students actually get scared about the huge ecosystem you are talking about, that how we can explore this much. So any advice over that, so that they have to they can particularly stick to that part, or that part, something like this, because when there is a very huge ecosystem and they have to just make a head start, so that is the point where the failure rate is much larger, right? So the students actually skip these things and they actually cannot contribute to that thing, so due to the huge ecosystem, of course. So any particular advice for that?
Sure. I mean, see, it's quite common and it's totally understandable that people, especially who are absolute beginners, and they might not even understand the terms that have been mentioned. For example, they might not be aware of Git credentials, cloud events. I mean, these are some of the projects that are out there. But what I would say is, very specifically, when we were discussing about how you can take part in code and how you can sort of get started with the beginner's guide, and so I would definitely sort of recommend you to go and look at this contributing to Jenkins presentation, because of the fact that this specific presentation really goes in depth about the entire Jenkins ecosystem, right? So whether you want to contribute to code, you will be basically be able to look at all the different kinds of like languages that are there, Then if you want to take part in writing some documentation blogs, you'll be able to find that. Now, of course, just understanding from an ecosystem wide level, right? As you mentioned that there is the Jenkins playground, and then there's the Jenkins infrastructure. And the infrastructure is what really powers Jenkins, and then the Jenkins playground is where the huge ecosystem of other different tools, how they utilize Jenkins within themselves, right? So those are primarily the two major aspects. So whether you want to go towards the infrastructure side or you want to go towards the playground side. So I would say that those are the two doors for you. So those are the two different ways in which you can get started. But
That
of
was
course,
you just showed, right? Jenkins CI and
exactly,
Jenkins
the two
Infra.
different
Yeah.
the two different organizations. So those are sort of the two main pillars of Jenkins, right? So that should give you a decent idea that if you are more interested towards the application side of Jenkins, or you're more interested towards how things work behind the scenes on Jenkins, those are the two different ways you can go with. But of course, all the documentation that has been provided to you, and of course, when you join these channels that I just mentioned to you, a lot of people are there to help you and guide you towards, like, if you're having a very dedicated specific interest, you'll get the guidance for that. So it's just, I mean, as a beginner, you don't have to get scared, but you just have to take these couple of steps that I've recommended to all of you to get a good experience of being into the Jenkins ecosystem, because
And
you
yes,
have
there
to
are
take that
dedicated
initial
channels
step.
as well, right? There are
Exactly.
dedicated
Yes.
channels as well. So yes, you can get the support over that, but you have to make some research, because as Shiva mentioned about the
Yeah.
presentations, so you have to thoroughly go about that, because open source is about helping each other but not spoon feeding. So yes, it is
Yes.
there are very good resources there. IRC channels, Gitter channels are there. So, and there are presentations, PPTs as well, and contributing guides as well. And there is a special uh, community tab there. So yes, it will be very helpful to the beginners. And yes, this is a very beginner friendly organization, I can say, right?
Yeah, and one thing that I'll recommend to all of you is the special interest groups. So this itself, breaks down. So first of all, what are special interest groups? Special interest groups are like dedicated pods of members who look into specific things. For example, some of them could be, some of them are just related to advocacy and outreach. That how can more and more people get to know about Jenkins, like by conducting events, conducting talks, meetups, right? Then some of them are related to cloud native. There is a dedicated interest group for just Google Summer of Code. So you could just join this actually on Gitter, or you could also join the mailing list for this, right? If you're just interested in, as a student, to know more about it. User experience, platform. So this is also a great way to go very specifically into that dedicated side of Jenkins that you're interested in. And you'll receive, I mean, most of the people will be able to help you out instantaneously. So it's just that you have to shrug off that confidence, or I mean, like that hesitance, and you'll be able to get a lot of great feedback by joining these 6. All right. So coming back to the Google Summer of Code, right? So the couple of things that I mentioned to you is start early and be highly communicative and be highly helpful, because of course we know that Google Summer of Code is not like just a programming internship. Like, it's an experience that contributors, they get to experience, and they are mentored by these highly professional people, highly experienced people in various domains, right? So it's really two things that Jenkins specifically looks at. Of course, your previous contributions from a code angle, but also gives some amount of weightage to how well are you active, because of course every organization wants long-term contributors. So that's something that you have to particularly be aware of with Jenkins, right? In case you are super communicative with the mentors, with everyone, you will have a good chance of being able to get selected for that particular project. So those are some of the things. Of course, you can look at all the previous years. You can see that it has been there for for a lot of different years, 2019, 18, 16, 2009. So I mean, a lot of different years, right? Especially for the past 5 years, it is one of the most consistent organizations to be there. And of course, that just goes on to show that there is a lot of scope within Jenkins as an organization. Of course, and it itself is quite sort of open in terms of getting newer ideas for plugin support or ideas about projects themselves. So Jenkins, I would say, is one of the most open organizations where each and every externally coming idea, for example, during Google Source of Code, while you're submitting your applications, not applications but proposals, there is a period when you can also share your own ideas for projects that can be there for an organization, and every idea is thoroughly reviewed by a bunch of different contributors and maintainers, and they go over them and they actively then also decide upon if there are some really good ideas that are there. So you can also give dedicated ideas, and then there are dedicated office hours that you can look at in the calendar as well. So there is a Jenkins calendar, and there are like dedicated office hours that take place. So I mean, even that is also something that you can look at from the Jenkins event calendar. That will also give you some amount of idea about that. So yeah, I mean, pretty much these are some of the things that you can be aware of, and just look at some of these steps to get started. Yeah, that's, I would say, that's would be some of the things that you can get started to contribute to Jenkins.
So that was a pretty good introduction and a deep introduction about Jenkins, and I can see that there are much supportive. This organization is really very supportive office hours, and there are interest groups as well, dedicated channels and a community. So yes guys, you can definitely watch it, and I will be posting the links in the description as well so that you can go through it. So this was all about Jenkins, and Shivaya has already given you advice, that is to start early. So yes, you should start early from now on only, and you have to be active in the community as well, because open source matters the most before GSoC, because GSoC is just a subset, but open source is the bigger picture, and every open source organization actually thinks about that bigger picture. So that is all about helping others and being active, right?
Yeah.
So that was a pretty good introduction, Shivaya. Thank you very much.